Welcome to the Veterinary Project Podcast, episode 057.
Welcome to the show created by vets featuring absolutely no pets. This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, hosted by Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht. Our resident veterinarians have swapped out their stethoscopes in favor of microphones to bring you the Veterinary Project Podcast, a show focused on real conversations, aimed to connect this amazing profession full of remarkable people. Through the sharing of collective stories and wisdom, and connecting over the many unique challenges we face, we invite you to join our community of veterinary professionals leading intentional lives. And now, here are the hosts of the Veterinary Project Podcast, Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht.
Welcome back to the Veterinary Project Podcast. Yours truly, Dr. Jonathan Leicht and Dr. Michael Bugg. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jonathan. I am excited for today's episode. I know it's maybe
this one's going to be a strong one for us. This is an area that we try and play in all the time, you and me.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. So we're talking about discipline. If anyone hasn't read the show notes, that is always adjusting, at least for me, like always fine tuning it, sometimes blowing it apart. Yeah. You know, it's very much a work in progress, but it's very fun. I enjoy it a lot.
And as we were prepping for this show, we're going to go into the tactics that allow you and me to do what we do, the places where we're strong at, the places we suck at. But I think there's going to be a lot of value for our listeners today. I'd say this one's one, as I said, as we were pre-recording, we're going to be able to deliver value for our listeners without a doubt. And it's fun. Like this is a place that for you and me, I think we enjoy being in this arena.
I think we do. And what I see with discipline is it can be very polarizing in terms of, it's kind of like the word budget. When someone thinks of a budget, you can either think scarcity and be like, oh my God, I have to follow a budget. That means I can't do X, Y, and Z. Or you can think, oh, I have a budget, which is going to allow me to save money and invest money so that I can do X, Y, and Z. And it's the same with discipline. How do you want to look at it? It's either going to hold you back or it's going to let you do more things. So
look at you with the analogies right off the start.
That one was just made up on the spot too. I don't even have that written down.
Hey, I got nothing to add to. That sounded really good.
Nice.
So perfect. So we've got a little bit of a compressed start today. We're not going to bicker banter on what's going on in life because we want to make sure we have enough time for this episode. But before we get going, I am actually on the hook for our quick tip.
I was wondering how you were going to handle this because I was like, oh, you're leading and you have the quick tip. Let's see what he comes up with.
The doer of all things today. So our quick tip is a very short one for all of those that are in the iPhone world. Please go and search out. It's either Forbes or Mac Rumor. There's a whole bunch of articles that are now talking about the iOS 15 update. And in that iOS 15 update, there are some cool productivity tools in terms of limiting your access to certain apps, how to better utilize your smartphone for those focusing needs. And I feel that the iPhone, again, sorry, I'm not a Samsung or a Google user. The iPhone is doing a really great job at providing us tools and tactics to do our personal and our professional lives better. And if you just click the update button, it doesn't really give you all of the details of what's available in your phone. It's getting more and more complicated by the year. So therefore, my recommendation, go search out one evening. Forbes, again, Mac Rumors, there's a whole bunch of Life Hacker for all the tweaks and tips that are involved in the iOS 15 update. That's my quick tip for today. So with that, also being the lead on this episode today, Mike and I, we had a short discussion in regards to the setup for this conversation. And when we brought up discipline, we thought this could be a really impactful, useful topic for a podcast. We're going to bounce off today in some of the places and areas that Mike focuses in on, that I focus in on. And there's a lot that we do together, but we're also going to take it from a standpoint of what works for Mike, what works for Jonathan, what doesn't, and vice versa. And hopefully being able to give you guys some ideas for what you can do when it looks like you need some more help around discipline. So I guess let's start broad picture. Mike, I'm going to put you on the spot. What does discipline mean to you in the context of our conversation today?
Okay. I'm excited actually when you were saying that. I know we're going to agree on a lot of things. I hope we actually disagree on some things, because this isn't one size fits all. And even for our listeners, you're going to hear things in this episode, and I would encourage you to listen to them and kick that around in your brain and take what works for you. And it's not all going to work. So anyway, just start with that. So I think it's really important that we start with a quick conversation on willpower versus discipline, because I do think they're different, and they're also not black and white, and they encompass each other. When I think of willpower as maybe trying to control like an impulse, right? Like an impulse decision, an impulse desire. You're going to use willpower to maybe fight against that or resist it. When I think of self-discipline, I think of it more bigger picture, almost like a strategy of doing what you say you're going to do, or even what you think you're going to do just to yourself, long after, the feeling that you said it has passed. So regardless of how you're feeling, you have a game plan and you're going to execute on it. And to me, that's more discipline. Now this is also nebulous, because if it's too rigid, I think it sets you up to fail. So I think of self-discipline as more sticking to the plan most of the time. And as we get into this here, I'm just going to share one quote to kick us off. This is from Dr. Benjamin Hardy. He has a PhD in organizational psychology, quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. He's the author, Jonathan, of Who Not How, which we talk about a lot. He's also the author of Willpower Doesn't Work. And early in that book, he says, and I quote, "To be frank, willpower is for people who haven't decided what they actually want in their lives." And that kind of hits me, that's kind of like a punch to the gut for anyone that's trying to use willpower. And again, I think of willpower as grinding, right? And I
don't think of it as grinding, because I think of it at the start of saying, well, I want to lose 30 pounds, so I'm going to have the superhuman strength of willpower to guide me all the way through the next 6 months in order to do so, which frankly is never going to work, because willpower is only going to go so far. And then you have the process, the pain points, the pushing through, the little bits of success and bigger failures that actually get you to your preconceived goal. And who knows if that actually is a good goal that you should be going with. To me, willpower is far off.
Okay. Well, let's kick this around a little bit. So I'll try to further explain what I mean by this. So I used to think willpower and discipline were just the same thing. Throw them in the same bucket. And I would think of that as grinding. To use your workout analogy, it's set this big goal. And even if you don't feel like it, you just got to push through. And I started thinking of willpower more as like a rocket ship example, right? So think about, like a spaceship in space. It's orbiting. So it's like effortlessly moving with gravity. But if it wants to course correct, it has to fire a little rocket boost, right, to change directions, right? It has to exert some willpower. So that's how I think of willpower. Yeah. And so in the context of discipline, you will require willpower at certain points. The thing is, I just try to set myself up, because like you said, willpower is a very finite thing. Like it's a muscle that gets exhausted, and we can all think of coming home from a really long day. And that's usually when you have no more willpower and you do lots of, not good habits. That's when you raid the fridge and eat all the bad food or drink all the bad stuff, or maybe you haven't done your workout and it's the end of the day and it's like you have no more willpower left. You're just not going to do it, right? So I think about discipline in the context of I need to optimize my willpower. I need to save it and only use it at key moments when it's most needed, right? Because if I waste it, it's gone.
And you're so good at that. And I completely agree with that analogy. I want to take it one step further and backwards in regards to the rocket launch or rocket ship analogy and jump into the rocket launch. So from your perspective, when you have this rocket that you want to get off the ground, no matter what goal or new stream you're looking at within your life, personal, professional, etc., what do you consider as the initial inspiration and dynamic to get that rocket, which takes so much effort to get off the ground? Because once you're in orbit, you're gold. You have to make some course corrections. You're already up there. What do you consider, Mike, that initial base around discipline needed in order to get that rocket off the ground? Does willpower come into there at all from your perspective?
It can. So this is where I think you have to really set yourself up for success. So for me, and I know I sound like a broken record on this vision thing, but for me, the number one thing is vision, right? Knowing clearly what you want, right? So you need to know, are you firing your rocket in the direction you actually want to go? Or is that a direction you think you should go because everyone else is? I use this example a lot for the veterinary community: buying a clinic, buying your own veterinary practice.
Yep.
Full disclaimer, I'm a huge fan of it. I think it's one of the most financially savvy things you can do for you and your family. But if it doesn't speak to you, if you don't want to do that, and you're just doing it because 6 of your classmates did it and you think you should, then you're not setting yourself up for success, right?
Yeah.
So your vision has to be like very much in alignment. And then stealing from our last episode on decision. So we're lining the rocket up. We've decided where we're going. Just like the analogy when I talked about the scalpel blade and debriding, by default, you've also decided where you're not going, right? And you need to lock in on that. And if you haven't locked in on that, then you're not setting yourself up for success. You're probably going to fail because you're diverting all over and like going everywhere. So anyway, willpower comes in where you don't know everything off the start. Sometimes you have to take a few steps in a direction and decide if it's for you. Agreed. So off the start, that may require a lot of willpower because you're not sure if this speaks to you, if you feel in alignment yet, but you're going to try it out. So that should be willpower. Once you find something that you are in alignment with, that's what you want, you desire it greatly, you're heading in that direction, you shouldn't need willpower.
Nice. That's where you have both the metrics of momentum on your side, but also those disciplines then start to carry forward and allow you to navigate as that rocket ship might hit some gravitational barriers, wind, seagulls, etc.
Yeah, you got to watch for the seagulls.
Got to watch those seagulls.
Like an example for me is that running goal. I wasn't really sure how I was going to respond to it because I had never been a runner before. So those first few weeks, that required willpower. My feet hurt. I had blisters. I didn't want to run, but I needed to give it an honest effort to see if it was in alignment. Now that I've been running for however many months, I don't need willpower anymore. I want to go for a run.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're talking about my morning routine now. My morning routine includes physical activity. And if we look at the last month, it would probably be in 26 or 27 of the last 30 days would have physical activity involved. A year ago, I would be hard pressed to say that because I didn't know where to fit it into my busy schedule, quotes, unquotes, busy. But once you make that choice, now looking back at it, again, the benefits way outweigh so that I don't even have to think about it. My clothes are ready the night before, and if they're not, I know where to find them, and you're out the door doing whatever you're going to do by 6:35. Yep.
I love it. I love that you put the busy in quotes because I was going to kind of blast you on that, but
completely. 6 months ago, or not 6 months, let's call it a year ago. It was at my quietest spot in my career in probably the last, 8 years. And if I were to call that busy, that would be a complete lie.
Yeah.
Yes,
no,
compared to now. And we actually did talk about this, and I'll bring this up now as we go into disciplines and specific tactics. Right now is, it's not all a bed of roses. That's for damn sure. There is a lot of work going on right now. And, a lot of it sometimes is not happy stuff. This is hard. I've got hard operational pieces that we're working with and dealing with. And if it wasn't for those daily disciplines, I told Mike before this, using an expletive that I won't use again, I'd be effed right now. Like those daily disciplines right now are the things that are keeping me sane. along with my family, along with, all the things that I think are important, and again, like you said, change over time. I said it differently, and you said, that was being vulnerable. I think that's really true. It's the daily disciplines that keep this thing alive and going.
Yeah. And for me, when I look at you, Jonathan, and you're putting a massive load on yourself in terms of what you're taking on, but you have a strong desire and you know what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Right. And so the thing, this is an important point too. Discipline is not the absence of stress at all, far from it. Discipline is just a system that allows you actually to take on larger and larger volumes and quantity of stress in the direction you want to go.
It's the ability to increase your capacity to go to the place you want to go. And that, it doesn't decrease. You had this real life discussion with me last week. I was a little bit down and out. You're like, Jonathan, it's only going to get harder. I'm like, you son of a bitch.
But it's exciting. It's exciting because you're managing and the operations manager for X number of clinics now, and you're opening your own. And I was laughing because I said, Jonathan, in 5 years from now, you're only going to own more vet clinics and manage more vet clinics. Do you think that's going to be harder or easier?
Yeah. So let's talk about tactics.
I don't want to ramble too much, but I want to set a little more base and framework. I won't go deep on them. You got the vision, where you're going. The other thing that is key for me, I would call it getting in state, or high vibration. This will also come back in tactics. I refer to it as my miracle morning, but it's getting your desire up, right? We're all humans. We all have ups and downs. You're not always going to be just raring to go with desire. So you need to put those things into your life that are going to elevate your desire, remind you where you want to go so that you go in that direction. And then the third thing in setting the foundation, we won't get a chance to probably go as deep as I want, because honestly, this is probably a whole series of episodes, optimizing and minimizing your environment. Mm-hmm. And so what I mean by that, optimizing your environment is setting yourself up for success. Jonathan, who's gone 27 out of 30 for working out in the morning. I've been to your house. You have a fantastic little gym set up down in your basement. You said your shoes and your clothes are laid out. You literally just have to walk downstairs and you're at your gym.
Yep.
Right. That's optimizing your workout environment. If you had to drive across Calgary and fight with traffic, your chances of success would go down. Right.
True. And we as a family have taken on the choice to turn one of our rooms, and basically our basement, instead of having a super nice TV room, we've turned it into a activity / gym room, which we have made the choice as a family that's how we want to grow with our kids. And again, my wife, who has got discipline up the yazoo compared to me, to make it happen.
Yeah, she does, by the way. Yeah. Right. And that's the other side, minimizing. You got rid of the TV room, get rid of the distractions.
We didn't put a big couch in there, so we had no choice. We couldn't sit on it. If we want to sit on anything in that room, we're sitting on a rower, legitimately a rower or a bench. You have no choice. Yeah,
I like it. So anyway, that's my kind of foundation. Yeah. I feel like we're doing environment a disservice by going quickly we want to get more into the tactics on this episode. I can't stress enough how important your environment is. Everything, right? Jim Rohn says you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. It's your physical environment, what's in your house. You and I were talking about what kind of car do you drive?
Yeah.
Everything.
Let's talk about that, because that's a point that you and me have both struggled with in the past. And some, to a degree, I still struggle with.
Yeah.
How does the car come into the discipline of leading to an environment which could lead to success in a whole different level that you didn't think of?
Yeah. And this is honestly a growth process that I'm going through. I've always thought of a car as it's just literally a tool to get you point A to point B. The cheaper the vehicle I can have, the better. I don't care really what it looks like. I don't care how messy it is, etc. Right? So I've been driving back and forth to our farm for harvest time. Harvest is over, but I was using my parents' brand new truck to commute back and forth just because it's way nicer than my old crappy truck. Driving their truck everything is more in alignment, right? We talk about getting into that higher vibration. Like when I'm going to my appointments to meet with people to discuss real estate, to meet with investors to discuss potentially investing, I'm just in a completely different state than when I'm driving my like '04 that could fall apart at any moment.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And this is new learning for me because I would have never been this way before. And I mean, we're not talking like Lamborghini style car, right? We're talking just reliable, nice, even within our house, Rosalie and I have been changing lots of stuff over where it's like, is this supporting us, right? Is this optimizing us or is it minimizing us?
So in what way does a car, in your view, because I'm in complete agreement, and we can use me as just as much of an example, lead to additional disciplines being able to be had towards success of life? Do you think it's an internal feeling? Do you think it's an outward perspective, an ego? Where do you think that comes in? Because I think it's a little bit of a mix of both that actually matches up and aligns, if it does, with your goal or your truth.
Yeah. I mean, this is a really deep question, even though we're using like a simple car analogy. It's kind of chicken and egg in the sense of, do you create your environment or does your environment create you?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the answer is honestly both. I think there's feedback going in both directions, and it's foolish of us not to like acknowledge that and acknowledge that, like if your car is an absolute pigsty, that rubs off on you. That's probably how you execute on other areas of your life. If your car is nice and neat and clean and it's washed and all of that, that's also going to slightly wear off on you. And that's how you're going to execute in other areas of your life. It's the cliche, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah. Nice. I like it. And would add into that car can be an analogy for your body, for your spiritual sense, for your personal sense, your friends' well-being, etc. Like you said, how you take care of that reflects off on the other parts of your life. So I think we've got into the tactics already. And yes, we're going to go on some rants here, but environment makes a massive difference. I use the environmental aspect of what I put in my mouth from a food perspective. I know when we have chips and other things in the house, I'm not a soda guy. I could care less other than when I'm having my Ryan Cokes. But from the standpoint of chips or pretzels, etc., when they're in the house, I'm going to eat it at that time of the night where I have no willpower left. Therefore, if it's not in the house, I don't have to worry about it. I don't think about it for too long and move on to eating banana or some other healthy concoction my wife's created. A lot easier to do than when that big full bag of chips is in front of me.
100%. And see, that's your environment.
That is purely environment. I want to focus in on that. We have the ability to create our own environment. And I think people push that off too often with excuses, with I'm busy, with other external factors that actually should not matter as much as they do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're bang on. I kind of refer to this is like a root cause decision, right? Nice. So where can I make one decision or one act of discipline / willpower that's going to eliminate all future decisions down that line of thinking, right? So with talking about the chips, we can go one level up and we can just choose not to bring them home from the grocery store, right? Rosalie and I have gone even a level further, and we have a lady that comes to our house and cooks for us, and she goes and buys the groceries that she'll need. So we're not even in the grocery store to have to make the decision to not buy the chips.
That's a big deal. That's a huge deal. And you and I have talked about the cost associated with that. And the more I've thought about that, the more I've, listened to friends and colleagues, et cetera, how much skip the dishes there is out there, or Uber dishes, et cetera. Those are very expensive one-time pieces, as opposed to what you guys have tried to do from a monthly perspective, which is probably in essence saving you money. Do you think?
Yeah. When you
break it down,
there, expensive jumped out at me because I would argue the opposite. And like, I think it saves us money, both literally in the sense that you're not buying food that you don't need and extra food, but more importantly, I mean, we're eating healthier, so it fuels our body better, but we don't have these decisions these acts of willpower in our environment anymore. We don't even have to make them. So that means I have willpower now left over for somewhere else in my day. Whenever that comes up and I need it, it's still available to me because I haven't fired it earlier on in the grocery store trying to resist the chips.
I'm with you. You and me are on the same page, or having to choose through the 20 different, skip the dishes options to choose in the end the same thing you chose before, because that's the thing you go to. I want to go back to a point you made earlier, because I want a specific tactics on this, because I think you're very good at it in terms of revving yourself up to the desire piece, to get going, to move ahead. How do you do that? What does that look like, Mike, in your day-to-day? Because that's a discipline.
So in the day-to-day, the day-to-day has to come from larger planning, right? So I talk about my 1-year vision. I follow the 12-week year. So we are just finishing Q3 and we're starting Q4. So next Monday, we're recording this on a Monday, next Monday from now, in 7 days, I present my Q4 vision and tactical plan to my weekly accountability group, where I'll have everything laid out about this is what I'm executing on this quarter, right? So we have the big plan, drop that into my daily habits. I review that quickly in the morning. This takes a minute or two at most, and then follow my miracle morning, which involves exercise, looking at those goals. So rather than saying revving up, because it's not like I'm like shouting and screaming and like, yeah, let's go. It's more about just being in alignment, right? So going back to that like spaceship analogy we opened with, I just want to be in orbit, where I'm just, I have the momentum going and I'm just orbiting through my goals. I'm not resisting a bunch of stuff, because everything that's showing up that day, I've intentionally put there.
So 2 points or 2 questions and follow up. In doing that and getting your orbit in the right direction, the right speed, and all of the above, how successful are you? And on a weekly or a monthly basis, what percentage of the time are you able to do this on a daily basis? Because there's probably a lot of people out there that that sounds amazing. I want to do that, but I do it for 5 days and then I fall off the wagon. And then I come back on and I fall off the wagon.
What is the most shocking thing about all of this is that you only need to truly execute it at a lowish percent and you'll have massive success. This is nowhere near perfection. So I know you asked for a percentage. I don't have one. I score myself out of 10, and I do not allow myself ever to score myself a 7. And that's my dividing line. If I score myself a 6, I'm failing. If it's 8 or higher, I'm good.
And those are all on the gardens of your life and all the different setups.
Yeah.
Which is a whole different conversation, which we did, I think, at the start of the year.
Yeah. And so my answer to that is most of the time.
Okay. If
you do it more often than you don't do it, you will be wildly successful. And I fall off all the time. Like my health workout routine, the last month I've fallen totally off. This is another one of my like key tactics is frequent resets. Yeah. So that's why I follow the 12-week year. This is a reset. It's a chance for me to just stop and be like, oh, you know what? You've kind of fallen off that. Is that goal still important to you? Yes, it is. Okay, well, let's get back at it. And the other thing with those frequent resets is have a short memory. Too many people beat themselves up. You said it in our pre-recording. Give yourself some forgiveness. Who cares? That's over with. Let's pick up where we are right now and move forward.
If anybody wants further on this, Candace and I, this was our Saturday night listening. Matthew McConaughey did a commencement speech to the University of Houston in 2015. It popped up on our YouTube after our row, and we ended up sitting there for another 20 minutes. Go and have a listen to this, because it's Matthew McConaughey style. He's amazing. And that speech there was amazing in terms of discussing exactly what we're talking about today, both from a forgiveness standpoint, moving forward, flipping the page, no matter what's happened in life, and having the discipline on the process.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
He puts out some amazing stuff.
Thank you for sharing that, Mike, because that's a big one. There's a lot of people that are scared to get started because they're afraid of failing. They're afraid that discipline that they said they're going to do, they put out to the world, and then they don't do it. They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. I think they're also afraid of succeeding.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because like if you have all these big lofty goals And I shouldn't even, that was a poorly worded statement. They're big, lofty goals, because this isn't meant to be pretentious. It's what you want. And just like when we decide, you are going to lose things to get there, right? So a lot of times it's the fear of, if I am successful and people in my life no longer like me.
Okay, let's jump on that a little bit, because there is a big piece of that in the world right now is, what am I going to have to give up to get there? And who might not be able to come on the road with me?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where to take that one. This is where
where so many gates are open today. I'll give you my perspective. And this is, I think, an inevitability of the road and journey that one takes on as they're trying to change and grow and develop. There is an inevitability that some of the friends that you would have looked at as friends previously are no longer going to meet in that new mix.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I don't even know what to say to that one, because you have to accept that. And until you accept it, it's going to hold you back.
Yep. I remember when you were going through a big change. That was probably 3-4 years ago. I remember that. And Mike, for all of us in university, he was the social guy. Mike was the guy that we were going over to his house and partying, and, this bastard that then didn't need to study hard and still get better marks than the rest of us. But I remember that transition for you. And I remember specifically watching your evolution of who you wanted to have around you, the mentors that you were bringing on. And you struggled with that a little bit.
Well, it's hard. I'm laughing if anyone's watching the YouTube. Like, I've thought about this a lot, where it was like, I talk about environment, and it's the cold, hard fact is, for a good while, I've been the negative environment. Right.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, like,
you just help perpetrate the continuance of fun.
Let's think about someone who has the goal, someone that was in my class, I don't know, just pick whoever it is, that had the goal of, I want to get really high marks in vet school and I want to live a really healthy lifestyle. And then they come hang out at my house Friday night. And it's like, I derail all of that, because we're going to party all weekend long, and you're going to do poorly on your Monday test, and you're going to have eaten like crap all weekend. Right. And it's like, that's the point though, is when I think we talked about way at the start, this is like a journey and an evolution. And and that's where, when you're launching your rocket, if, try it on, if that's not the right direction, shut it down, aim in a different direction, go again.
Yep. That's one of my bosses and former mentors would always talk about it in terms of a reality check. We'd use it in the HR world in terms of, if you are not having those reality checks often on what's going well and what's not, then you can veer off course very easily. And that bigger reality check is that much harder to come to. And sometimes you don't get there.
Yeah. And surround yourself
with disciplines,
with people that support you, that, like, my Monday night group that I'll present my vision to here next week, they're going to lay it on me straight. If I try sneak something in there where I'm just lying to myself, they're going to call me out on it in a really supportive way. And I'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. Cause we're not perfect. You need those guardrails around you.
So if we were to take a couple of specific disciplines that you think you do really well with, and I think I do really well with, that guide us towards further success, let's start with a couple of small ones. I'll use mine.
1 second. I got to answer. I got to add one more tactical thing, because it's really important. Very quick. Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. It's simply in pretending you are a rocket that's going to launch. I always think of this lying in bed, count down from 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get into action, get those feet on the ground, out of bed. This is probably one of my number one tactics for staying disciplined, is because when you sit in your head and start rattling off all the reasons and excuses why you shouldn't do something, that's what's going to trick you into not doing it. So just don't even let yourself go there. So the counting down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it works because you can't think of something else while you're counting down. You're counting down. So you've just shut off your thoughts about, oh, it's cold outside, or, oh, I'm sore, I don't want to go for a run, because you're not thinking about it. Counting down as opposed to counting up creates urgency. Once you hit 1, there's nowhere else to go. So you got to do something. So it's, if you're counting up, you hit 5, you're just going to go, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're going to just procrastinate, right? Count down. Once it hits 0, get into action. And then once you're in action, once that's the like getting in orbit. Once you have momentum, you'll stay in momentum. So anyway, that was my last like key tactical piece.
It's great tip, Mike. That's not one that I've heard before, and I'm going to test that out on a couple pieces. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do you use pen and paper? Do you use a notepad? Do you use your computer? My business coach is telling me to use pen and paper more. There actually is a cognitive change that occurs when you're putting pen to paper. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I'm still a pen and paper guy for a lot of things. I just think better, to be honest. Like if I'm doing vision work and deciding what goals I want, I got to be scribbling, writing, kicking ideas around with my pen. I have it right here, and I've got notes as we're doing this.
Excellent. So use pen and paper. Discipline. Somebody that wants to lose weight and build a business and change a relationship and you're filling a lot of buckets all at once. We're in a profession of A-type personalities that love going, for the most part, I'm generalizing, but we want to go ahead, and we want to go ahead fast and hard and succeed at everything we do. Is it possible to do all of those at once from your perspective, if you have not started yet?
Oh man, that is a tough question. My first instinct to answer that is no. And you got to hear me out on this.
Okay.
You said, can you do all of those at once? I'm a very big believer that when you're trying to be the best veterinarian you can be, that's what you're doing. You're doing surgery or you're solving a medical case. You're not working on your health.
Yeah.
When you're at home with your family, you're not a veterinarian. You're not checking your phone. You're not checking your emails. You're with your kids. You're with your partner. You're doing that, right? When you're working out, you're working out. Now, granted, you can add things on, right? You can listen to an audiobook while you go for a run. But I'm a big fan. Like, I think multitasking is one of the dumbest things in the world, to be really blunt.
You and Becky Taylor. Becky Taylor's clapping from the background right now, one of our former guests, because she is of the exact same adage. You cannot, and research is showing this. We're not, except for we're getting worse and worse and worse by the year.
Yeah. So you can't do them all at the same time, but you can, in any given day, move all of them forward.
Yes.
Right. That being said, eventually things fall off. You can't be everything to everyone.
But can you be everything to yourself?
Only if you know what that is. That's where it's like it goes straight back to the start. Like, if you don't know what you want, then how can you possibly expect to get it? And it's going to change, right? You don't, if you're a graduating vet student right now, you have an idea of what you want, and that's great. Revisit it in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and it will have changed. And that's also great too. That means you have to cut off things that no longer serve you and move towards things that help to optimize and move you towards that.
Excellent. Oh, we're getting into so much psychology here. Jumping back in, keeping us somewhat on a train that we are not staying on the same cart on. Daily disciplines. You mentioned your miracle morning. For those that have no sniff of what you've just described earlier in this episode, what is that?
Miracle Morning is actually a book by Hal Elrod. And so he just talks about how to set your day up for optimum success. And he uses an analogy called savers. They all stand for something. It's exercising and journaling and visualizing. It doesn't matter. Take that framework, find what works for you, and do something. And again, it's all about how intentional you're going to be, right? So the alarm clock, if you still use an alarm clock, goes off, you get out of bed. The whole point is you're taking your day and moving it in the direction you want, as opposed to responding to the world, checking Facebook, checking Instagram, and reacting to what the world wants. That's the key difference.
Love it. And that is a piece I struggle with all the time.
So I mean, sure. You told me something in the pre-recording, and I think I've tried to call you or text you, and your phone is scheduled to shut off or lock down at 9:45.
Yep, sure is. Yep.
Well, tell us about that, because this is like, we'll call this the miracle evening, because you're setting yourself up for success in your evening and going to bed and spending time with Candace.
That's correct. Yeah. So even last night, I jumped it down myself personally to 9:30 because I know that in order to be successful in the morning, because my kids right now are an age that I want to enjoy time with them while I can, because they're getting to an age now, they're going to be getting on the bus, or they are getting on the bus. They've got their activities, and I'm not going to be able to see them. And I already don't when I'm traveling. That morning is so important that I turn my phone off at 9:45 at night. So my phone literally just shuts off on itself. Again, another iOS feature I can have that blocks off. So I have to manually turn on any app. And sometimes I do. And if it's Friday, Saturday, I go ahead and do that. But that limits my ability to then get off the wagon and go look at YouTube for an hour. I don't have cable, so I don't have to worry about news or anything else. I don't have that in my house already, but that prevents me going on a chain of Instagram reels I don't need to be on. It serves no purpose. And then I can get myself ready for bed. I know I need a half hour without being attached to the blue light on this thing or on my computer in order to have a better sleep. I've gone so as too far as I have the Oura Ring, which is Oura. I've had this since February, which tracks my sleep and my consistency in terms of related to REM sleep, deep sleep, light sleep, my breathing patterns. So I'm seeing how my shape is changing over time, what my sleep patterns are like. These are the gory details of discipline, which is actually then allowing me to do better in my day-to-day. And it for me, again, personally, I've been at it since February of this year, specific to the Oura Ring. It's made a difference. And it literally probably takes me about 3 minutes of my time a day. And that's it.
Yeah. See, this is amazing. Like that's what I would have called like one of those root cause decisions, right? You made one decision, set up your phone so it locks down so that you don't have to make multiple decisions when people text you or call you. It's just blocked.
Yep.
And then the other thing I heard in that, and this is a key part of discipline, and I don't have a great way of describing it. So for lack of a better term, just optimism versus pessimism. And again, you're going to fall in two camps. You're going to say, okay, life is really stressful right now and we need to improve. You can be an optimist and you can say, I can take control of that and I can start crafting my environment to what I want, which is what you're doing, monitoring your sleep patterns, fine-tuning them. Or you can be a pessimist and say, oh, well, there's no way I can change any of this. It is what it is. I'm screwed.
Jim Rohn's got a great story. Jim Rohn talks about the guy that comes home late after dinner. He's worked 10 hours a day. He sits down on the couch. He watches TV, and then he wonders why he's broke. And Jim Rohn goes, well, look at the habits. What are you setting up? And Jim Rohn and his storytelling ability is so much better. But he describes, you have that choice. You have the ability to direct the way you want that to look. And that's the guy that's complaining about being late on his bills, et cetera, et cetera. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Choices. Excellent. Well, Mike, we are over time as we thought we would be. Again, any other tactics? I think, this is such a place where I'm interested to hear feedback from our comments. We've been getting some great comments, both good and bad, about where our episodes have been going, which is excellent. Any other tactics here? And I'm sure we could go down a hole here. Any others that you think we could touch on?
Just quickly, the other one that I would say is, like, I intentionally put myself in deep water in over my head. So it's like, master all of these basics, right? But then the point is that's going to kind of become mundane to you, right? And I know where my goals are. So then it's like, okay, I'm going to turn up the pressure now just a little bit more on purpose, right? Control your environment, add a little bit of pressure, and then you'll adjust and adapt to that new level.
Yeah. You did that going from single houses to buying apartment buildings. You've seen how your acumen and how your professionalism has just increased over time. Without a doubt, I've seen that from a side. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I love it.
Great choice.
The apartment, the last one we closed on, I didn't know where the money was coming from, right? I knew it was a great deal. I'm very confident in my skills. I know I have investors that want to work with me. but it's not like the money was sitting in the bank, but it's like, we're going to turn the pressure up and we're going to go make this happen. But it's in perfect alignment with what I want.
Yeah. And you knew that from the start. I remember us having a lunch meeting where you actually had not taken any investor money yet. And you were a little bit concerned. You're going, I don't know where I'm going to get it from. But your vision was such, your discipline was such, you said, just walk through the process, have those conversations you need to be had. It will happen. And look at where you are now. Yep. It's a great point.
Yep.
Great point. Awesome. Well, this one was a fun one, as I knew it would be. Any other tactics before I come to a close for a third time?
No, I mean, I'm out for now. I prepared like 3 pages, and I mean, if we want more, I can keep digging, and I'm sure there is more, but those were the main ones.
I think what we should do for another episode, and love to get feedback on this one. And actually one other thing as well too, is let's bring this to the veterinary world, tactics within the veterinary world that we can specifically take. And maybe we'll have to hone that off of some of our previous guests that we've had on and mentors that are specific to either veterinary clinics or veterinary professionals, even though a lot of this talk today is about veterinary professionals and could be. One last thing before we go, I should have started this off for the day, is the Veterinary Project has a new community newsletter that is going to be arriving on your desktop if you so choose. This is going to be different, dun, 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 which means when you get an offer to sign up for our newsletter, you want to put your email address down, because we are going to be providing some high impact, excellent articles and resources that are not going to bore you. That was our goal. Our team is really excited to get some of these pieces out to you. Give it a try. You'll be able to see more at theveterinaryproject.com. With that note, have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Project Podcast. As a recap, on behalf of our hosts, the Veterinary Project Podcast will be releasing new episodes weekly. So be sure to tune in as we bring you more conversations aimed at helping you enjoy a life well lived. If you enjoyed what you heard on the show and you want to stay in the know, please like, love, and or subscribe to the podcast on the listening platform of your choosing, as we're available on all the usual suspects. If you know of others that may benefit from these conversations, we'd love it if you please share the show with them, as this will help us grow our community to reach more and more veterinary professionals. Speaking of which, if you are a veterinary professional and would like to get connected with more like-minded individuals who are joining us on this journey, please send an email to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll invite you to be a part of our private Facebook group. General feedback, requests for information, or perhaps requests to be a guest on the show can also be sent to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com. Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Leicht, thank you for listening to the show, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Bye for now.